on my credit card every 3 months. You can do that. This is how you develop fundraising streams. They're just ongoing. You don't have to reinvent the wheel all the freaking time. And then the other issue, of course, is bequests. You know, you can see our age, but that already can fund us by itself. So I'm just saying, you know, if we build an internal, if it's, I'm sorry, I don't use it, I'm breaking.
We're dying to give.
So I'm just saying, I think those are real funding streams that we can just access if we just build an internal movement. You do what you do. You only got $10 a month, $5 a month, but let's set it up so that it's ongoing and it's just automatic and it's happening. Rather than, you know, people on, you know, like Michael and stuff always have to reinvent the wheel and figure out how to, you know, get another grant and stuff like that. So.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question because I'm a little confused?
Okay.
How do you define major donor? Because when I'm back in
Right.
Massachusetts and I'm meeting people
Right.
talking about this, where's the threshold?
I understand. Well, the threshold is going to be different. Okay. So the question was, what is a major donor? And the answer is, it depends on the organization. So for us, I'm sorry, I should know this. I admit exactly what is our average donation. But right now, our lifetime membership is $1,000, and we get quite a few of those. So I would say 2,000 on up, or we could say 5,000 on up. Sometimes we haven't really defined exactly a specific number. You know what I mean? But I encourage you, number one, anybody that has disposable income that can give several $1,000s, we're going to call that person a major donor. But we'll work on a specific number. But for some reason I say that, for some organizations that get large donations, you know, $5,000, which we don't get a whole bunch of $5,000 donations, but some organizations do, that's not going to be necessarily a major donor when they get somebody who gives $100,000 and $1 million. You know? Yeah, yes. So I didn't want to get into a bunch of questions right now, but okay, Maurice is also a board member, and then we can get into questions in a few minutes.
So this is all our organization, right? And I don't think that the answer is us dumbing down and get rid of staff and not to make sure we're raising, but we want to do the right thing. But we're membership of about 3,000 people or more. And I'm being a part of many campaigns, we're going to be talking to some donors. Thank you. Hello. I don't know if that's louder than my voice. I don't know. Well, we're going to be contacting some of our auxiliary people, some of our more famous people that are part of our organization, and start talking about doing house parties and that sort of thing that we've raised a lot of money, and we see campaigns raising a lot of money. But I also think that our individual members can do a lot more to help us too. If you care about, I see you at this convention, so this organization is important to you. So I implore you also, with 3,000 members, just talking to your friends, talking to people you go to church with or something, to contribute a little bit to the organization. If we got I've worked on many political campaigns, and we run the show off of $10, $15, $20, $40 per person on the campaigns. This is how Obama made it when we were working on there, a bunch of $10 and $20. So we all can contribute something, and any one of our friends or 5 of our friends all can contribute. So if we're going to ask the large donors to have house parties, maybe just have a get together and say, hey, if you raise $100 here or $70 there, that begins to add up to a lot of money from 3,000 people. So what we're asking you is to also pitch in a little bit too. The weight falls a lot on our board, but it also falls upon our membership, because this is a membership organization, and we need your support to help make it run.
Okay. Right now.
All right. Yes, previous treasurer.
Walk around and be the jogger guy.
But I was doing it.
One thing, can you hear me? One thing is, Nate Goldschlag, Chapter 9, Boston area. One thing, nonprofits, one of the main functions of a board of directors of nonprofits is raising money. This board and previous boards, the boards I was on, never did this. And it really takes a big shift in the culture of the board, because that was not one of the items on the things needed to raise money. And yet the board of directors should be raising money from wherever, from working on grants, working on major donors, whatever. And there really needs to be a shift in the board culture for this to happen. The other thing is what Patrick mentioned, recurring donors. You know, a lot of you pay $40 a year, that's great. But think about paying $75 a quarter. You know, as a recurring donor, you don't have to then get a phone call from Doug Zachary. And it's $5.77 a week. That's like one beer a week if you become a recurring donor at that level.
Thank you.
Would you pass that?
Can you take this, please?
And pass it to the woman behind you?
Thank you.
Rachel Clark.
Okay, this is the last before I get back to my thing.
Hi,
Okay.
Rachel Clark,
Yeah.
New York Chapter 34. I have a question with regard to the timing of the convention. Why does it have to be in August, where airfare is the most expensive and hotels are most expensive? Just by changing the period of the convention time, I think we can save tremendous amount of money. What do you think of that?
Okay. That could be true. I don't know. I don't know.
I think it's the
Well,
bylaws.
I know the answer to that part. I'm just answering the part. Yeah, listen, let me finish. So, it could be true that we could save more money if we weren't in the summertime. I don't know. Okay, until you do an analysis, I don't think anybody knows, but it makes some sense. However, the reason we do have it in the summer is because the bylaws call for a very specific time frame, which is, I can't remember if someone could look it up, but it does call for July to August. Yeah, something like that. So there's a very specific time frame why we have it in the summertime. But that's a good idea to do some kind of analysis to see if it'll be cheaper, at least if not for, I'll just say that. And then we need a bylaw change. And we won't be able to do it until then.
Like I said, a lot of numbers.
So I don't. That gives you a picture of the revenues, member dues, et cetera. Yeah. So, and I thought I had, but it looks like I didn't. So we'll make sure that it gets put in the newsletter and on the website, because we usually do that. A breakdown of how much money goes in the program, how much money goes in administrative, and how much money goes into fundraising. I thought I made a pie chart of that, but I don't see it, so I apologize. But the bulk definitely goes into programming. So, is it okay if I move on from this point? Okay. Okay, so the budget as written for the year was $538,000. So we try to keep down expenses. Obviously, we're not raising enough money, so we kept expenses down. So I've readjusted to hopefully meet, if we can meet the goal of $441,000 by the end of the year, then we should come out at even or a small loss. But that's going to take about $56,000 a month to raise. So once again, it gets to obviously myself and the board doing some work to try to raise that money, and also any help we can get from any of you on ideas of who to reach out to. So to get to funder stuff, the reason we raised the money, and I put the finances first, you know, so you can see where we are, but now let's just talk a little bit about how we raised the money, why we raised the money. So this is the work that we do, right? And I'm not going to read it because you all have read our statement of purpose. So ways we are doing our work, and I'm sure I'm missing something, so please do not be offended if I have. But resisting U.S. aggression and war is kind of like a major piece that we do in various ways. Exposing the true cost of war, our members getting out and just talking and doing, talking about it and doing educational events about the cost of war, human and financial costs. We're working on building a culture of peace, healing the wounds of war, which one of those is the VA, for example. Peace at home, peace abroad, one of the ways we talk about how to look at war and building peace and helping people understand peace is possible. Those are some of the ways that we are talking about peace. So our national projects, efforts to abolish nuclear weapons. There's a number of things that we're doing. Of course, we have the Golden Rule. We're working on the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, divestment from nuclear weapons. I think those are probably the three biggest things. If I'm wrong about that, once again, I apologize, and I can update these slides. We have the Korea Peace Campaign, Peace in Our Times, Veterans Peace Teams, the Vietnam Agent Orange Relief and Responsibility Campaign, Vietnam Full Disclosure, and the Iraq Water Project. Now, put beside that, and these revitalizing or it may fold as a project. Art Dorland has been doing leading the work for the Iraq Water Project, but there are a number of people who I can't tell everyone, but I know Ellen Barfield, for example, has been on the committee to help Art with the work. And we've had a major donor, what's his name, Ellen? Or Tom Sager, yes, thank you, who has helped keep that work alive, really. But Art, I spoke to him last week. Art's getting older and just basically tired. And he would like to pass it on to a younger veteran or a group of veterans. So I wanted to reach out to About Face and see if they're interested in helping out with that. Maybe that could be a coalition project of some sort. Water still needed, obviously help with water still needed in Iraq. Also, we might want to think about, in the Peace at Home, Peace Abroad lens, there's communities like Flint who need help with water here, you know? And so you get into that organizing aspect of helping people see how the U.S. is responsible for poisoning water, not only here at home, like in Flint, but also in other countries, because I'm sure a lot of people aren't thinking about that. So that's one thing I think we might want to look at. So I'm just warning you that if we don't get some help, the Iraq Water Project is going to go away. So some national campaigns, we claim Armistice Day, which, you know, we've been building up, and obviously This year is not a culminating year, but a big year with the 100th anniversary of Armistice. Save Our VA, deported veterans, truth in recruiting. We need more organizing direction. A lot of people do truth in recruiting, but we really don't have a committee that's working together to help each other and develop best practices and things of that nature. Veterans Challenge Islamophobia, and our participation in the Poor People's Campaign. Which is another campaign that we want to develop a national working group or committee to really help each other put materials together and get the word out and build more strong relationship with About Face, who is also very active in the Poor People's Campaign. Then some emerging work, I think, is stopping war in Yemen, global campaign against U.S./NATO military bases. I think that's I got that name off of where's Jerry? I got that name off of their website, I believe. That's right. Okay. And the global network against weapons and nuclear power in space, because there's going to be a space force. So, you all remember the cartoon Space Ghost? Yeah. Okay, so chapters are doing awesome work, and there's too many to mention, so I'm not going to try to, but I do want to give you a flavor of that just a moment. Could go on and on. We're at May here, but you can see the diversity of our work. We are very active. And we're definitely making a difference. I know sometimes it feels like we're not, but the reality is any type of resistance, and there's massive resistance to what's going on in this country and around the world, makes it much more difficult for those powers to do what they're doing. And so you should be proud of yourselves in terms of just getting up in the morning and resisting and organizing and making things happen. But we do need to be more thoughtful, I think, and build the unity that I talked about and raise funds to drive the engine in order to make this happen. And then lastly, who knows where all this is getting ready to go? It could get worse. I think it is going to get worse before it gets better. But at some point, it's going to break, because you just can't oppress people and keep people down forever. People resist. And people are coming together in ways I don't think any of us have ever seen. There was a lot of resistance in the 60s, but I think it was more, not individual people, but individual issues. But people are coming together in ways you've not, I know I'm only 54. I know you're all, many a little older, much older. So maybe I'm wrong. If I am, tell me, because you actually saw it. But I know in my life, I've not seen this kind of activity in terms of people coming together. And last night, Rose Whipple, if you didn't make it to our program last night, Rose Whipple was an indigenous Native American person talking about how the Black Lives Matter and the Native Lives Matter people came together here in St. Paul, Minneapolis area to work together on various issues. I think that's an incredible example of the kind of unity that is starting to build in this country. And we're part of that. So let's just keep on trucking. So of course, now, if there are some more questions, I'm willing to take them. Yes. Oh, yeah, right. Thanks.
Dave Schott, Maryland, Baltimore chapter, Phil Berrigan. Dave Schott, Phil Berrigan, chapter Baltimore. Just a few different questions. One, I know Jackson Brown did the concert in Chicago last year. I think he donated.
Yes. It was about $60,000, I think it was, or $63,000 that went as a major donation.
That's a great effort, I
Yes.
think, you know, and I think Barry's idea of getting some celebrities, Oliver Stone, are inviting folks. I don't know. It seems like it may have paid off, but.
Yes.
And last night, I don't know how many funds, did you take any funds in or get a?
Yeah, I guess you could say donations or the offering that we had last night came out to about $850.
And,
So that did help definitely pay for it last night. Not completely, but it did help.
and it's always good to just emphasize at the end, hey, we got a bucket as you
Yes.
leave if you weren't able to give earlier.
Right.
You know, always press that. So.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? Yes.
I recall that when I was on the board, we incorporated a policy decision that any gift or grant that I believe was over $30,000, I'm not sure of the threshold number, was going to go into, in effect, an endowment fund and not used as part of operating expenses. Is that policy still in place?
I would say in a practical way, no, because if we didn't use the money, we wouldn't been able to pay the staff. So, no, as a practical, you know, we would still have $75,000 more in the, you know, in the bank, but staff wouldn't have been paid, and other things, maybe the lights wouldn't have been on or something like that. So.
Justin Loza, Chapter 46 in Monterey. Loza. Two questions. On the raising more money, how are we managing donors to like any system or any like CRM system? I know there's a really good one called HubSpot. It's free and it integrates with Outlook and it's a really great system. And then also, have we been taking advantage of any graduate level like client projects? You know, a lot of graduate schools will do pro bono work for organizations to help them set up like monitoring evaluation systems or you know, help out with the financial statements and whatnot. Just wondering if you're doing any of that stuff.
So the answer to the second question, the answer to that is no, and I'd be happy to talk to you about ways we could do that. And yeah, I'll just say that. The first question is yes, right now we're using eTapestry, which is a Blackbaud. First eTapestry was its own thing, Blackbaud bought them. So Blackbaud's like the major donor database company, but we're getting ready to leave them, and we're going to be using something called Salsa that once was Democracy in Action, and they changed their name to Salsa. We've been using Salsa for a long time, but we used it mostly for our advocacy piece. By that I mean the e-blast that you get every week, or when you get a action alert or anything like that, that's done through Salsa, because they allow us to build the page that you go to, send the e-blast out that has all the graphics and stuff in it, and they're also more of a, I guess one of the reasons that we're able to do that with them, because they're more of a movement type organization. And they came to be because of trying to do movement work. But the reason we have them and eTapestry is because their donor database was terrible, you know, and it just didn't do what needed to be done. But over the past 2 years, they bought a company that's donor database oriented and merged their advocacy piece with the donor database, which we're just so happy to have, because right now we're keeping 2 databases. You know, one is our donor database, which is in eTapestry. The other one is basically the same database, so that but it's so we can send stuff out to you as advocacy piece. So then we're always trying to synchronize those, and that's a lot of work. And you know what I mean? So now we're going to have it in one place. So we'll just have to see how that works out. Hopefully it'll work out good. Well, we have to figure out to what extent we can give access
to chapters and why exactly, because you don't want to have a lot of people in your donor database. You know, what I've seen anyway usually is that individual donors can go in and change their information in some, not for us, we haven't had this, but other organizations, you know, if their name is wrong or if they change their address and things like that. So super limited. So there might be the ability maybe to have chapters be able to do that, but I don't know yet. Yeah.
Are you also asking for a more integrated system for online donations? Right. So it's a big flaw, or it's a big hole right now that we have that we're hoping, like when we go back, we're about to merge databases. Because right now what happens is we basically have a donor base of record, or a base of record, and then the Salsa, which is basically just a hub of emails. So we're not really able to, I'm not really able to track without incredibly complicated processes of what appeals work, what doesn't work in terms of our online stuff. I only do online stuff. The other thing that's exciting about Salsa is that it's a little bit more, you know, in touch with modern technology. You know, most nonprofit databases, unfortunately, are not really, you know, sort of integrated into mobile-friendly sites. And anybody 40 and younger only really gives online, and they give on their phone. And so Salsa is working on that technology at a much faster rate than what eTapestry is doing. So there's a lot of possibility in terms of, because it also has, you know, engagement track records, and it has, you know, so it's not, you know, it's a huge issue in nonprofit world anyway, because oftentimes people who are, you know, the donor related stuff is not necessarily mixed with what organizers want. And Salsa seems to be one of the best that is integrating both needs. So I think it'll be a little bit of a nightmare in the next couple of months in terms of, you know, with any integration, but ultimately I think it's going to be really amazing for the future. So I just wanted to say that. Can I just say one thing? Okay. The other thing that I wanted to say too, sorry. The other thing I wanted to say is that our online donations are below industry standard, and possibly that's because people feel way more comfortable, you know, writing checks given the, you know, demographic of our organization. But the other thing is it is a piece that we really can expand, and it's a piece that's easy for all of us to become development officers. You know, when we did our last Giving Tuesday, we doubled the amount that we were bringing in. And this is just, you know, member organizations, the average donation is $25. And it was really because we had a big push for all the board members to share the donation push with their own private message. So people, yeah, I'm sorry, this is on Facebook and Twitter. So like, you know, so for people, this is something that's very easy to do. If you see, hey, they're doing a big donation push right now that we've shared it on our Facebook page, share it and put a message, because it's possible, you know, your friends may not necessarily even know about Veterans for Peace, but they really like Reese, and Reese is asking this question, and they're going to give $20 because they care about Reese. So this kind of stuff is really important on our social media, and the more that we can sort of increase, that we can all become donors, the more we're going to increase our online donations, which then also ultimately helps with grants, because a lot of grants ask what those percentages are, and if we're not really sort of either at industry standard or you know, that can affect that we're not taking advantage of all the avenues that we can be. So I just wanted to say that.
Thanks for helping me out. I should tell you, we do have an appeal that's going out. If it's not in the mail, it'll be in the mail soon. So I don't know if you'll probably see it next week. And then you'll see follow-up. Emails to remind you to give. And when Colleen was talking about checks versus online giving, because our members tend to give via checks, but just, I don't know if you might not know this, but a lot of younger people don't have checkbooks and don't use stamps. Not only don't have checkbooks, but don't even use stamps. You haven't touched a check in 10 years, right? Right. Let me.
Just a couple of suggestions from another organization I work with, that being War Resisters League. Ken's question about bequests, what they did, and WRL is 95 years old this year, but this is not all the way back to that. It's relatively recently, the 70s or 80s. They started getting some big bequests from longtime supporters who died and happened to have a lot of money when they went. And what they did was, instead of saying if it's big enough, it all goes into an endowment, they did it percentage-wise. And that's a fairly easy way to get operating expenses, which you need right now, but also build the endowment. And WRL has about a $2 million endowment, which saved it back in the 08 and thereabouts when the collapse happened, and a lot of our colleague organizations died. Endowments are really important to use, and use a percentage, so you're getting some use out of it right now. You need it, but also you're building up the cushion for the hard times.
I'd like to expand on the idea that Monisha brought up. Oh, Helen Jackard, Golden Rule, at large. So I'd like to expand on what Monisha was talking about regarding hierarchy and make a suggestion that one way that could be handled would be more outreach to have members help out with functions that national or staff or board members have been asked to do. And that could be in the form of help with database conversion, phoning major donors or writing them postcards and letters to say thank you for your donation. Or there's probably 100 ways that our members could be asked to help out and relieve some of the heavy-duty burdens that the staff and the board members are being asked to do, and that would include non-board members on committees that are standing committees of the board and things like that, so that everybody can feel more involved at a national level. Thank you.
Thank you. And just really quick, that would really help with transparency and accountability. So thank you.
Bill Grover, Samantha Smith chapter in Ipswich, chapter 45.
Speak a little louder.
I'm sorry. Bill Grover, Samantha Smith chapter in Ipswich, chapter 45.
Spell your last name.
Grover, Grover. Like a guy on Sesame Street, I see. He's blue all the time, but I'm only blue part of the time. So, anyway, the last board I served on, after we did the budget and figured out where some of the money was coming from, the board members divided up what was left and made a commitment to do that, to raise that money. And I ended up at the end of the year with a $3,000 donation to my board, because I'm not a great fundraiser, but I did get some of it, and I learned a lot about fundraising, learned a lot about how to, not to be afraid of doing it. So the other thing I wanted to ask you, you have an advisory board, and have you asked those people to step in and not to donate money, but to help you figure out how you reach out to people and in their network, and can they provide support for you by having events that because I think the advisory board is the really key piece to your fundraising and your major donor efforts?
The answer is we're working on it. We could do a lot more with the advisory board, and we're talking about it. Some of them have stepped up and helped out in various ways, but we could certainly engage them more systematically in helping us with fundraising, and we're talking about a number of ways of doing that. Right, Barry? Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Dave Dittemore, Tacoma, Washington, Chapter 134. I disagree on relying on our board members to go out and fundraise. I want our board members to represent the membership. That's their job. I think we are going to have to hire professional fundraisers. These are the people, you know, maybe they get a 10% cut or whatever, but because the money is in the 1%, you know, us Occupy members, folks, you know, we're the 99%. We're not going to get big bucks from our buddies and our friends. They're living under a bridge or whatever. I mean, at 20 bucks, that's great. But we want to have people that can go talk to people that can give us $1 million check. And that's not us, and that's not our buddies, that's not our friends. A professional fundraiser, those are the people that walk in those circles, know those people. They're maybe the lobbyists in Washington, D.C. or whatever. You may hate them. You may think they're scum, but that's what we need, my friends. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we've had a lot of good suggestions. Michael, I'll let you wrap up here, but we need to move towards lunch shortly.
I had a really quick comment in response, and the comment you made about members, there being a lot of ways members can participate on. I think it's very valid, and I just wanted to say, I mean, we do have board standing committees that have members as active components. We have working groups, we have national projects, and I think one of the things that we can do better is to better inform members about these opportunities of getting involved, particularly members at large who might not have a chapter that they can work with, but there are so many different things that they could be doing that would have significant impacts on us being able to function as an organization. So I just wanted to take a moment just to share that input.
Courtney?
I want to respond to the last comment. I do appreciate that, especially as a board member. I definitely appreciate kind of what I hear is like kind of taking the burden off of the board to raise money, which sounds really good because that's pretty hard work, definitely. But unfortunately, it is our job to raise money. It actually is, and we're legally responsible for the organization. We could be held liable for the organization. Now, I don't think anything would happen where the organization would fold because we're well endowed and we're doing well for the most part. We have to raise money and represent the membership. We have to do both of those. And that is what makes being a board member kind of special, but also a bit difficult. So it's a balance, definitely, and we need help. We definitely need professional help, that's for certain. And it would be great to get that and represent the membership as best as we can. So.
Yeah, so just to close out, one thing, Jackson Brown is on our advisory board, so that money that he raised at his concert is an example of advisory board member helping out. Our Berkeley convention, we had a number of advisory board members speak at that public event. But yes, we definitely need and will do better at that. Also, a professional fundraiser can help the board, and I can do better at helping the board raise money. So a fundraiser is not just like everything's on that person's professional fundraiser's shoulder. That person would have a program that would help the board and challenge the board and myself to do the things that need to be done to bring the money in. But that's all they think about instead of, like, I'm thinking about 50 things. This person would be thinking about one thing and then 50 things within that one thing. So that's what the reason to get that fundraiser would be. But the board would still have the responsibility. That person would not, the success of that person would really be based on managing the board when it comes to fundraising. So that's it. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, one more thing. We got to move, Ken, but what do you got?
I think it's off.
Ken Mayers, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Chapter 55. I'm going to go back to something that Patrick touched on lightly and a little bit harder. Is there anybody in this room who thinks he's not going to die, or she. At some point today, we will go through our presente ritual at the banquet, I guess. And there will probably be 20 or 30 or maybe 40 names that will be read off. And of those 20 or 30 or 40 names, there will probably not be more than 1 or 2 or 3 at most who have remembered Veterans for Peace in their will. I look around and I see very few people who will be here 20 years from now. And unfortunately, I think it's highly probable that at least one of us in this room today will not make it to next year's convention because we will have died. And I think it'd be a damn shame if whoever that is hasn't remembered Veterans for Peace in his will, whether it's a small will or a large will. So I want to strongly encourage you all, when you get home, if you haven't already done so, to do something about remembering Veterans for Peace and keeping this organization going after you're gone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ken. All right. Well, thanks, Michael. I want everybody to give a big hand to our Executive Director, Michael McPhearson.